Good afternoon, Quasar Markets Live. I am here for our trading mindset moment with our mindset coach, Agnieszka Wood. Agnieszka, how are you doing today?
Hi, Howard. How everyone? I'm doing really good. So far, so good. Also with the hurricane, so the wind is picking up right now, actually at this very moment, and rain. But we are doing good.
I do want to give our viewers one quick update here before we get into our session. This morning we were watching one of the pumpers pre-hours cakes and holdings here. I did tell you guys if it broke the VWAP, retested the VWAP and bounced up, it did do that. So if you followed that trade, we did hit that 23.94% target in less than an hour. So hopefully you did that. And again, we had targeted that based upon the fact that that was the high it hit on the open of the pre-market hours. I felt it was going to do the same thing when we opened up regular market hours. It did. It's still up in that range. It's going well. Those that used a trailing stop, you probably got a little bit more profit out of it, but I did want to bring that up to everybody that was here this morning. Okay,
Which ticker was that? What
that
trade was
was
that?
KXIN. It was a pumper this morning. We were watching a few of them. We were watching Bonsai, which was a breakout this morning in the pre-market. That did retrace right to the level that I said we'd look for here. Could be a spot here. If this breaks back above the VWAP, it would be a play right now. You've seen it's found support here at that 469 level pretty well after making the explosive move today. This one's been a big one. It was threatened to be delisted from NASDAQ, made the move above $1, and has been now a pumper that has
Hmm.
been sort of rinse and repeat on it a few
Okay.
different times here. As you can see, it did the same thing
So
back
that's
here
more like
earlier.
the penny stocks, dollar stocks.
But they've got volume. So this is something that's got 31 million shares traded so far
Oh
here.
wow.
So that's what we don't play around with anything that the price of a stock doesn't indicate its value. It's more about how much of it's actually
Totally.
moving that I care about. And what we're looking for are these volume pumpers. And I pointed that out yesterday. This is a great segue. You make me feel good about myself. Because I brought up this morning, if you can see on my chart, I know it's small for you, but there were some this morning that some viewers were saying, hey, why aren't you looking at this STKH? It's up 21% pre-market. It was doing that on 400 shares of movement. So I was pointing out to them that we're only looking at things that have millions of volume,
Right.
and that show us that there is actually, it isn't just a pump and dump. There is volume behind
Right.
it to make it move. So
Right.
that's what we were
That
looking
makes
at this
sense.
morning.
That makes also sense why I don't know the ticker because I do actually trade a certain price range stock, so
Right,
that
absolutely, and
doesn't
a
sound
lot of people
familiar.
do. Yep, absolutely. So here, one of the things I'm a big fan of Jesse Livermore. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's one of the sort of
Yes,
mainstays
absolutely.
there. He had the big thing with the even numbers, right? When a stock breaks 90 cents to $1, you usually see a huge move, sometimes into two or three. When it
Hmm.
breaks five, another psychological spot for it, $10, and then from there. So I play a few
Round
things
numbers.
using that. If they match up, my scanner matches up to those round numbers. Sometimes you see what you saw there, where you can do a quick 25% jump right through a number and get out and move.
Right,
So
right. That's awesome. I had some good trades or trade. Actually, I wasn't trading this morning because I wasn't sure about the power, but I was watching the market, and yeah, I had Apple already setting up beautifully.
yeah, I'm not gonna
Just
lie, I missed
picture
that one.
perfect.
I didn't see Apple make that move in time.
Yeah,
Nvidia was
yeah.
making some. We saw some of them making the moves today. Tesla had a huge jump up, one of my big ones. I always say don't fade the Musk. Today was definitely one of those days to be on the side of it. I will warn on that one. I do think it's a little bit of sell the news. Tomorrow is that robo taxi day,
Yeah.
and everyone all of a sudden jumping in today. What's going to happen? FOMO is going to kick in, and this is why we need to talk to you, because we need to talk about some of these patterns that some of us are stuck in, that we've been stuck in over time, and how do we get out of there? How do you actually take a step back? So first thing is, we talked about this on Monday. These are sort of your three steps of mindset transformation.
Right.
And this is part of your free email program that you give people for free. Again, it is right under her on the screen. There's a QR code to get that. Please take advantage of it. And we talked a little bit about trying to build awareness. And I asked this morning if you could talk a little bit, how do you do that? How do you break out of these patterns? How do you identify the patterns that are causing our problems?
Yeah, it's really interesting question, especially that just yesterday I had session with coaching call with my group program, and it was exactly about that. It was actually about limiting beliefs. How do you identify limiting beliefs? So, I do that with my clients to just help them. And it's just so interesting because the limiting beliefs are actually forming those patterns, right? The way that we act, whether it's in life or in trading, everything that we do is based on what we think. And our thoughts that we have, our perspectives, our opinions, they are forming those patterns that keep us in a certain way of doing. So if we want to break our, let's say, self-sabotage or behavior in trading, like for example jumping into trades based on nothing, based on air, and just simply because you're excited and you see the move, or you are talking yourself out of a profitable trade and missing the profit, right, on a consistent basis. So those are like examples of those behavioral patterns
I know
that
I
most
struggle
traders
with
are
those
trying
all
to
the
break.
time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So first of all, we said it's awareness, right? How do you identify that? So by watching how you talk to yourself during trading, but also just watching your thoughts. Journaling is a really good way to do that. And then when you look at those thoughts, you really have to ask yourself the question: is this what I'm telling myself? Is this story actually that I'm telling myself working for me, or is it working against me? Because you see, the thing with beliefs is they seem true to us. They seem not just like a thought. If I believe something, I am so convinced about it that I will defend this thing, right? I will defend this
Sure.
as like, no, I'm identifying myself with it and I'm saying, no, this is the way it is, or this is the way I am. And I will not question it very often. So it's really about having the flexibility to look at yourself and say, but is it the way I am, or is it just something I tell myself that I am, right?
Right.
Just one example. There are many people who believe that they cannot change, or that it is very difficult to change. And my response to it is, if you say so, then it is,
I'm
right?
with you. I
Be-
always say, these people will bang their head against the same wall, and then they'll come back and ask the same question over and over and ask why something happened. And then when you try
yeah,
to tell them, they get so defensive, like you said. And I think it's a defense mechanism. I'd have to ask you
it
about
is.
that. And then I'd also have to ask you, is it important too to watch out for the echo chamber, so to speak, in these situations? Because what I see is certain traders that have a preconnotation say that, again, don't fade the Musk, like I just said. They get into an
Mhm.
echo chamber where they only follow people who also don't want to fade the Musk.
Yeah, yeah. So we are always looking for a confirmation of what we think. This is how we keep our beliefs in place. And if you don't realize that a certain belief is limiting you, you might just be making that belief even stronger. So if you have something that doesn't work for you, first of all, ask yourself, like, what is it that I'm telling myself to make me do this, right?
Right.
Because
Why
it
didn't I
is
take
something
that
you keep
trade,
in
or why did
place.
I take that trade?
Yeah, exactly. And usually, as you say, it's a protection mechanism. So usually it is something because it's because you wanted to avoid something or you wanted to achieve something. So if you like kind of go down the rabbit hole, you will discover why is it that you're doing. And it's not to blame you, because a lot of times the question why has that blame effect. And like if I say like, why did you do that? The first reaction is like, I don't know. I don't know
Right.
why I did it, right? So that's the challenge. It's like, okay, but what would it be if you do know? If you like just take a moment and think about it, right? Just look at yourself and it's like, if the question why is so difficult, at least look at how did you do that? What was the process of you doing it. And I will give you an example. I had have a very good example from just this morning. I was talking to one of my clients, and he had a trade where he entered his setup. And after he entered his setup, it was a short trade. He realized that he entered on an already quite extended candle, right? And the first thing he said to himself was, "Oh shit, this candle had already like 5 points move." So even though the setup was absolutely valid, he had a stop. Now he was all nervous because he just scared himself. He just told himself a story that like was making him completely anxious. So he was breathing through it. You know, there was a discomfort. And yes, because there was already a certain move, the price started pulling back, right?
Right.
There was a pullback, but it never reached his stop. And even though that it didn't, the story that he was telling himself was geared towards that fear of, oh shit,
Yeah.
that started with that
Luckily, he
story.
didn't pull the trigger because most traders would have hit that panic button. Um,
Well, no, he didn't, but he did cut himself short because what he did to limit the discomfort, he adjusted his target. You see,
okay.
and that's a lot of times what traders do. They are trying to limit the discomfort. But what most don't realize is that we as traders, we get paid for being uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Right. If you don't get nervous and I don't mean nervous, but if you don't have some if it's not getting your endorphins moving, if you're not getting the dopamines up, then you shouldn't probably be doing this.
Well, it's normal that it's happening because there is money at risk.
Yeah.
There is something at stake. So it's very normal that the market is gonna bring some level of discomfort, and that's where the practicing mindset skills and building that resilience to that discomfort is gonna help you to you know. And I compare it to a fireman running into the fire, right?
Right. You have to
It's not
desensitize
that
yourself.
it's not that he is feeling comfortable doing that, but he has built this immunity. He knows why he's doing it, right? So if you see your setup actually working, you can also talk yourself through it in a way of what is happening right now in front of me. Am I expecting this? Because when I talked to him after, it's like, was this the first time that you entered and the trade pulled back, or that the candle was already, a few points? And it wasn't. So it's really that very first story, very first reaction. How are you going to set yourself up for this trade management, right? What story are you telling yourself? And a lot of times it's based on your beliefs, like, I don't want to lose,
Sure. Sure.
for example.
That's yeah, it's definitely a big one, and that's why one thing that I always say is I like to set trades in a way that are set it and forget it. Make sure that I have all the points. Where's my take profit? Like I pointed out there on that one example. I had already explained to everybody we're looking at a 2.5 to 1 risk ratio. So we would set a stop loss about 10% if we're looking for 25% gain. You would load
Right.
all that in, and then, I make that trade. I usually take a step back and don't watch it for the first few seconds because that's been my
Right.
example. I guess I've worked through this on my own a little bit without you, and that's how I
Good.
have to do it. I really do because, like you said, I think it is easy. It is really easy. You're like, oh, you know what? Maybe 23 was too much. Let me change it. No, I had set that because that was the high. There was an actual reason, and and
Right.
history has proven that these things play out. That is what
Right.
charting and technical analysis. So I love that idea for you. I would have to ask is, how do people sort of get to that aha moment? Is it different for everybody? Do you find that it usually takes a certain amount of time, or is it, different for each and every person?
The aha moment of I self sabotage myself, or to really discover what limiting belief is.
I think a little bit of both. First, for that this is that I am my own obstacle sometimes. I think is part of your build awareness for me. That's how I term build awareness.
Mhm.
Is that sometimes I am the obstacle, and I do need to
Right.
realize that if I want to make that next step forward. So
Hmm.
that's number one, and I think people get that one. But now, okay, what just happened just actually reinforced what Agnieszka's taught me. And now, aha, maybe I should be, practicing these exercises more. Maybe I should be tracking my habits.
Hmm.
That's sort of, I guess, where it is, where it goes from
Right.
skepticism but interested to, okay.
Yeah. So the aha moments are, happening when you are paying attention. In order to pay attention, you have to get out of your head and out of your own story and understand that whatever you're telling yourself, you're just telling a story to convince yourself about something, to make yourself right. And the best kind of a measure for that is look at your situation and is it working for you or is it not working? Because if it's not working, then probably you are doing something that is simply not working for you in your advantage, right? And now
Sure.
you can start looking at what is it that it is not working. And with beliefs, it's a little bit like this. People want to believe certain things or they see themselves in a certain way and they say, oh no, I am very disciplined. But if you believe you are very disciplined and the practice shows that you are constantly um, breaking the discipline or not following your trading plan on a daily basis, then maybe you are simply lying to yourself because the practice in practice is the reality basically shows something else, right? So there is a level of integrity just to you have to be honest with yourself and have that put a critical eye on yourself, so sort of a lens and say, okay, let me just look with the serious eye, like, what is it that I'm doing that is not working? And stop telling myself and sugarcoat everything just for me to feel better about it. Because what is really important here is what results are you getting? And just do the reality check. What is your reality and what is it that you believe? Like, a good example would be like if you ask someone, are you open minded? Everyone will say they
Yes. Of
are,
course I
right?
am.
I'm like, okay, so how often are you actually evaluating your beliefs or your actions, and how is your will to change? Like, are you willing to change? And that's a different story, right? So how open minded are you? Same
Yeah.
thing with abundance. Do you have a mindset of abundance? Of course, yes. Nobody wants to think that they think in scarcity. So why are you so afraid to lose? And is abundance actually manifesting in your daily life? Is like money coming to you from everywhere? Or are you trying to squeeze it and like you're really scared when you're trading that you might lose?
Right.
Because you see, there is a if there is a discrepancy there, then maybe somewhere down there there's actually a different belief that you like to believe you have.
Sure, and like that goes to almost that social media aspect of, sometimes people lives look so rosy and everything because of what they portray on social media when that isn't really what's
Right.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's important for traders, I think, to realize is to get, into their heads of, where are you? Do you have a bias to a certain way?
Right.
Because that's what, for me, part of this, I guess I would ask too, is it about learning more about your own biases? Because what I noticed as I started doing a lot of your stuff is I realized that I tend to have a contrarian view on things.
Hmm.
When everybody in the market says it's going through the roof, I'm usually looking for the weaker spots, and when everything's dropping, I'm usually looking for the other. So I have a bias that's in my trading that I didn't really see until I started to follow some of your steps, quite honestly. So I have to thank you. But I've
Hmm.
noticed that I
Welcome.
never would have. And if you had told me I was a contrarian trader or had that bias, I would have absolutely said I do not. So
Yeah, because again, we sometimes like to believe or see ourselves in a different way than we are. But if we have certain expectations from ourselves, right? We create this fantastic image of ourselves and then put a lot of energy into fulfilling that image. And it could be based on your own expectations, but usually it is based on the things that you think other expect from you.
Right.
And there's a lot of hidden beliefs in there. And I'm not saying everyone has a lot of limiting beliefs and it's only like that. No, because you have been achieving a success in other areas of your life and maybe you have a great life. So you have a lot of empowering beliefs. The only thing is that many of those beliefs from daily life, they are not compatible with trading. Like working hard, the more I do, the better it will be,
Right.
or money comes easy to me, right? No, you have to work really hard to make money. Nothing comes easy. That there's just a lot of different things that we tend to believe and we think it's good, and it is good because if you are, for example, um, being in control, I'm always in control, that sounds like a very empowering belief, but you can only imagine if you are having this belief in trading, you're just going to start forcing trades and micromanaging it and trying to control everything, and it's just going to work against you. So even though sometimes there is a thought that we don't even think it's a belief, it might sabotage you. So
Right.
having that attitude of like, let me just do a review, like just like you go to a doctor every year, do a checkup, right?
Sure.
Just review your beliefs and see if they all still working for you and they're valid, because sometimes an empowering belief can become limiting at some point in your life because everything changes, right? So
Right.
reevaluating is important.
Yeah, you have to. Like I said, I thought that I was a definite, play the hand in front of me, on this day I'm going to do this. And I realized what it really is play the opposite hand that everybody else is playing in front of me. And
Right.
now I need to take that into account when I am doing my trading
Yeah.
um, there.
Yeah. And that particular thing can actually, for many people, can turn into forcing, because if you have that and you feel like, okay, me against the world, because that's where it can go to, right?
Yep.
Everyone goes left, but I'm different, I'm gonna go right. Now before you know, you're gonna be so stuck in that mindset, if you don't pay attention, that you might start even adding to a losing position and
Right.
hoping it's going to turn around, because you have to be right, and you're always right. And so there
Yeah,
is a lot of
that part
dynamics behind it.
I've taken enough lumps over the years in the crypto side of it to know that that isn't the case. So
Right.
I do feel
Yeah.
lucky there that I got
Good.
help early in my trading career. Um, but but the but like I said, what I'm finding is looking at your steps, looking at your habits. I've been doing that religiously now every day, and I do
That's
catch.
awesome.
I'm starting to see some things that change the amount of trades for me so far. I'm noticing if I don't get enough sleep, I tend to overtrade. And I don't know what the
Right.
connection is yet, why that is. I guess I have to ask you at some point. But I'm noticing that connection that I tend to overtrade. I've looked at the number of trades I'm making on these days, and when I get more
Hmm.
rest, I seem to be more calm, maybe. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not going to psychoanalyze myself here on the air. Otherwise, we'll be here for hours. But
Yeah.
I will say, like again, I can't stress enough that these are just simple things that you've already provided to me free, and not because of our partnership here, but because you offer
No, it's
these to
for
everyone
everyone.
to
Yes.
get into a better place. And they work. They definitely. I'm seeing patterns. Becoming a little bit aware. I think I'm not all the way there, and yeah, I
It's
still.
a life's work, Howard. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's
No, I
not
don't. And
even
I don't.
one-time work.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that it just, you're done. Like all of a sudden I'm going to say, hey, guess what? I've fixed my mental mindset for trading, and I'm
I'm
done.
fixed.
Yeah, no. Same way that I'm always looking at new indicators and different
Exactly.
lessons on, TA or, theses. It's going to be the same way on my mind. At least I hope that
Totally.
I'm smart enough to continue on this path. We are going to get out of here in a few minutes. I did want to ask you, again, any tips for people on a little bit on your journaling aspect? I do think that's important, but I don't
Mhm.
fully, get like what type of notes. If you had to say two or three things that you would write down that somebody could do in 5 minutes or less at the end of the day or during the day, because I could be wrong, and maybe you should be doing it as you're actually trading. If you
Yeah.
could take
Yeah.
us out with that, that would be great.
Okay, I'll just give you a few ideas. I do provide full templates for my clients to get them into the habit, and also because once you start journaling, at some point you will have those questions in your mind, and then you will be asking just yourself those questions. You not necessarily have to write everything. But before you start your trading day, I think one of the most important questions too actually are, what are my intentions for today, and what do I expect myself to do? Because there are two different things. You can want to do something, but you want to make money, but you expect yourself to lose, and that's very different things. And you always get what you expect. So ask yourself, what is my intention for today? But what am I also expecting myself to do? How am I expecting myself to act? And then the second question, ask yourself, is today, considering whether you're tired or how long you slept, because remember, not everything is psychological. There's a big part of your brain that's physiological.
Sure.
You need a good night's sleep, and you need to be rested in order for your brain, and you have breaks for your brain to function optimally. So is it in my best interest to trade today? Is it in
Wow,
my best
that's
interest?
that's a question. I didn't think of that. You just gave us our sound bit for the day here on that. I love that answer there, and
Right.
it makes a lot of sense. Again, start small, work your way up, to your comfort levels. Thank you so much
Totally.
for joining us today, Agnieszka. Stay safe down there in Florida. I know you're a little bit out of the way of
I will.
officially,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
will see you again next week. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you so much, Howard, for having me, and have a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you. Bye.